I remember in high school, I was that kid who would always look in the student section and complain if not enough people showed up. And I was talking about how we had cliques at our school and we didn't have school spirit. And I go to high schools today and I hear the exact same complaint from teachers and from students and from administration. They always talk about how there's cliques and no school spirit and we've got to be more of a community. I hear it all the time and the cliques haven't changed. It's the same exact thing. Leadership kids are still leadership kids. Athletes are still athletes. Band kids are band kids. Drama kids are drama kids. Skate kids are skate kids. The floaters, the kids who bounce from group to group and clique to clique and aren't really a part of one thing, those kids are the same. It's all the same kind of stuff. And I was a floater. I was one of those kids who was super tight with the skate crew, and then I was super tight with all the athletes. I was super close with all the church kids. I was super close with all the misfit outcast kids who didn't fit in. I just kind of floated from group to group. And I thought because I was cool with kids who not everybody was always cool with, that I was kind of like solving the problem. But it wasn't until college, when my college basketball coach showed me I wasn't solving the problem, I was the problem. I remember showing up to that first walkthrough. Coach handed us an itinerary of the week and it basically laid out what we had to do for the rest of that week. And I noticed on Friday night it said band concert optional. And I remember looking at that thinking, this is my first weekend in college. I'm from a small town in a big city. I was like, I'm not going to this band concert. I didn't go to band concerts in high school unless I got forced to. So I was like, I'm not gonna go to a band concert now. I didn't show up at the band concert, got to the walkthrough Saturday morning, and when I walked in Saturday morning, it was very apparent that that wasn't really an optional band concert. My coach walked in, he looked at everybody, he very seriously asked everybody to leave the room except for me. He looked at me and he basically in a very short, stern, honest way said, I asked you to go to a band concert on a Friday night and you didn't show up. And he was like, I want to show you how important you are here. He took me to the gym. We got into the gym and he made me get on the baseline and he just asked me to start running. And I just kept running and running and running and running and running. And it got to the point where I couldn't run any longer. I ended up done, collapsed, couldn't run, looking at coach, so confused, frustrated, mad, not understanding what he was even trying to say. He looked at me and he goes, that right there. That's how important you are here. He said, I asked you to show up to a band concert, and the reason I asked you to show up to this band concert is because the band shows up to every single home game we play. They're the loudest part of our student section. They're the heartbeat of this school, and he was like, you're gonna show up for them every single time because they show up for you. And it was in that moment I realized, if you want to solve this whole school spirit community problem, you've got to start showing up for each other. Because when I walked into our first home game, when I saw that crowd and I heard the band and I saw how excited everybody was, I realized in that moment, it wasn't a separate group of people in our school. We were a community. We were like a family. And it wasn't just at our basketball game. It was at everything. People showed up to every single choir concert we had. If there was another sport going down, the soccer team, everybody showed up. Girls volleyball, everybody was there. It wasn't just for the boys basketball game. It was for everything. And I realized we truly were a family in that moment. I know when I go to high schools all the time to speak, people always raise their hand and they're like, Mike, we don't have good school spirit. And that's one of the biggest issues people want me to address when I get there is how can we make our community closer? How can we have less cliques? How can we have more school spirit? And I say the same thing every single time. School spirit starts, community starts when you guys show up for each other. So if you're super influential in your school, maybe you're an athlete, maybe you're really popular, maybe you've got a following, I think there's a lot of responsibility on you to set the tone for the rest of the school. Once the athletes in our school started showing up for everybody else, community naturally followed. So if you've got a big following, if you've got a group of friends, or if you're the one who's kind of leading your clique, if you're an upperclassman, you have a responsibility to drive school spirit. And some of you guys, maybe you're not in a sport or an activity. Maybe you just are one of those high school kids with a massive social following and you're really influential on Twitter or Instagram or wherever it is. That's your platform. That's not a privilege, that's your platform. Use that platform as an opportunity to celebrate other people because that's what drives community. The minute you stop posting a million super artsy selfies of yourself or you stop vlogging about your day or making really cool content, hit the pause button and use that platform to celebrate other people, that's when you start to drive community. And maybe you're not super influential online. Maybe you're not a part of a group or a clique or whatever. Maybe you're just kind of a regular high school kid just floating around getting through it. You have an unbelievable opportunity to be the person who truly, truly drives community because you have an opportunity to see things that maybe everybody doesn't see. Maybe you see that kid who's sitting by themselves at lunch. Maybe you see that kid who's not connected to an activity. Maybe you see someone on a Friday night who's not going to have an opportunity to hang out with anybody else, so you ask them to join you and go do whatever you and your friends are doing. Wherever you're at, whatever spot or whatever group you're a part of in your high school, Every one of you guys has an opportunity to create community, but it starts when we genuinely appreciate what's different about each other and we learn to accept one another. I honestly believe that when we start to accept each other for what makes us different and we learn to show up and celebrate each other, that is when we turn cliques into community.